As you guys can probably already tell, this is not going to be a normal video as we're in my room right now. But this is the video I've been talking about that I want to begin done. I talked about a couple videos ago how I want to talk about our farm's history. In this video, I want to talk about the history of our farm, Neverest Dairy. My farm obviously is kind of centered around our farm because that's what the videos are all about, is our farm. And I just kind of want to talk about how we got to where we are now in the history of the farm. So since we have 4 generations of farmers on our farm here, we're going to have 4 different videos. So I'm going to have this video right now. It's going to be covering my great-grandpa Donald and my great-grandma Charlotte. They were the first generation on the farm here. And then as we get, I'll do another video about my grandpa, then my dad, and then maybe a video about me and Duke. Maybe, potentially, I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But yeah, so this will be the first one. We'll see how this goes. And yeah, we'll start our story now. Before we get too far in the video, though, I'd like to thank my great aunt and uncle. They helped me get quite a bit of the information that we have in this video, and they gave some of the pictures you guys are going to be able to see, so I just like to thank them real quick because they helped out quite a bit for this video. Our story begins on June 6, 1925. That was the day my great-grandpa Donald was born. His parents were named John and Lillian Schlender. They owned a small farm just outside of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, which is about 19 miles away from where we are right now. My great-grandpa had 2 siblings, 1 brother and 1 sister. Donald grew up working on his parents' farm. He met his future wife, Charlotte, roller skating. Roller skating back then was kind of like the big thing. So some time passed, and he and Charlotte got married on March 10th, 1948. After this, Donald and Charlotte rented out Donald's parents' farm and rented together for a few years. After renting out Donald's parents' farm for a couple of years, they decided they want to go out and buy their own farm. So, in 1956, they went and bought a farm. This farm has stayed in the family name up to this day, though many people at the time didn't think so. Many thought that they weren't going to make it. The reason for this being is that in this area, around that time, there was over 10 dairy farms within a few couple miles. So that meant a lot of farmers wanted to buy the land so they could expand a little bit and stuff. So this meant that they had to pay a lot of money for the farm. But they got a farm of their own that they owned themselves. After buying the farm, Donald and Charlotte started milking cows. Most of these cows that they probably got were animals that Donald already had at his parents' farm because they milked cows there too. Also, supposedly, Donald worked with another man that they sold and bought cattle. So my great aunt kind of thought that maybe he got some animals off of that too. So they weren't milking a ton, probably like a couple handful, not tons. Since they didn't have tons of money from buying the farm, they didn't have a bunch of the latest farming equipment for the time. So, for example, my great aunt said when they first moved out and for a little while afterwards, they milked all the cows that they milked by hand into a bucket. Then each single bucket got carried to the milk tank where they held all the milk. And for other farm equipment, they didn't really have a bunch of equipment. They still had horses in a time when tractors were kind of starting to take over. They still had draft horses they used for field work. The 2 tractors that they did have that we know for sure is a John Deere Model A and a John Deere Model B. What's kind of cool is we still have the Model B around, which I'll be going outside and kind of showing you the Model B and some of the other stuff that still stands from back then. It is kind of cool to have some of that stuff like the Model B and still have the barns, the main barn that they milked cows in and stuff still standing. It's kind of cool to show be able to see that and then see the other stuff we have around the farm nowadays that just shows how we've gotten bigger around the farm and just gotten better stuff. So one other thing that my great aunt said that for sure that she remembers is that they used a small hay square baler for hay and stuff that they rented from our neighbors. And these neighbors milked cows back then, don't milk cows anymore, but they do still have a couple steers and stuff. And we actually do rent some land from them, so that's kind of cool. Things circle back and stuff. So besides the cows and a few horses for farm work, they didn't really have many other animals around the farm. They might have had chickens for a little while or something, but they didn't really venture out into any other animals types in the farm. So sometime in the 1970s, they bought another 60 acres of land. So what's kind of cool is the original 165 acres that they bought in like their time period. We all still run all that, so that's pretty cool that we run all that land still. And also sometime in the 70s, we don't really know for either one of these numbers, but they also put up another silo, so they had an original silo that they bought, I think, on the farm. At least I'll talk about that in the picture that you guys will see in a bit. But yeah, so they put up another silo for holding the feed for the animals. At the end of the 70s, they were milking anywhere between like 50 and 60 animals, kind of somewhere around that area. So a lot of things kind of happened in the last couple of years in the 70s, but my grandpa Neil became partners with Donald and Charlotte at the end of the 70s. So we're going to kind of talk about some of those bigger things like that happened then in my next video when I talk about my grandpa Neil. So that's going to be the main portion of me just sitting down talking to you guys. This is kind of weird for me. So I got a picture that I'm going to break down of kind of the farm, how it was when they first bought it. And then we're going to go outside and look at some of the things that still stand from back then on our farm now. So this is the picture that I had pulled up earlier in the video. So this picture is taken not too long after my great-grandma and grandma, Donald and Charlotte, bought the farm. So right here, this is the main barn where they milked all the cows. So on the bottom here, they had the cows and also like the drag cows, because they weren't really milking tons, so they all fit in the barn there. So that's on the bottom part here, so like the stone, that's the first level. And then like above that is the barn floor. They had bales and stuff in there probably at the time. And then right here is also the original milk house. So all this we still have standing. So I'll go outside and show you guys that later. But then looking around at a few other things. So they had a silo when they bought it. And this right here is like the cow yard, obviously. So the animals would get let out of the barn. And then there's like pasture all the way back around here. And this building right here would have been where they had their heifers. So obviously, since they didn't have tons of cows, they would have all fit in there. So I think my great aunt said that they had the barn split in half, maybe potentially, for animals. So the heifer animals were also let out into like maybe a different pasture or even the same pasture with the animals, like the bigger cows and stuff. So yeah. So over here we got a machine shed, probably, most likely. That does not stand anymore. Obviously, our shop actually is kind of what's here now. But this is either the Model A or Model B tractor. Not really sure which one. It's kind of hard to tell from this picture. Then over here is a corn crib. So that has cobs of corn that are whole, that they picked right off the plant. So yeah, that's kind of the main gif of kind of what this picture has to show. So we'll go outside now and I'll kind of show everything how it is now where we have it. So yeah, I guess we'll start our outside portion of the video here. So like I said before, this is the original milk house from when they first built all this one. This is all how it was kind of when they bought it. So the reason that it doesn't all have siding here is that eventually they didn't have it right away, but eventually he had a bigger bulb tank that where all the milk was held that came out here. It came out like filled up about half this outside. So now that we don't milk down here anymore, we took that up to our new cow barn up there, and we were using the same bulb tank still, so that's kind of why this doesn't have siding on it. So anyways, this is the rest of the barn here. We'll go look at the top side to kind of show you what we use it for now. And then here we have the Model B that I was talking about earlier that we still have around. So we had this thing running about 2 months ago-ish. We pulled it out of the shed here. This is kind of where it stays most of the time, but we pulled it out of the shed, did a couple things with it, and we parked it back in here now. So maybe someday we'll kind of restore it a little bit. We don't really have tons of extra time to do stuff like that. So maybe one of these days we'll do something like that with it. So this is the top of the barn here. So normally on a normal year, this is all packed full of bales here. This year we didn't really get into the marsh like we normally do. So this isn't really as full, because normally we'd have like a bunch of bales right here. So we don't have tons of bales. And then normally the mixer tractor and the mixer get parked right here. And then we run feed out off of this conveyor belt down to the animals that are down in the barn down there. So then over here, normally we have straw all in here, so we've used some of it up already. So then this would normally be all full of straw too. And then this kind of just holds stuff right now. We got seed for next year and stuff like that. So don't really have anything up there at all. So that's kind of all there really is for here. That's kind of what we all only use it for. So yeah, we'll go downstairs and we'll look at the bottom now. So this is kind of what the bottom of the barn looks like. There used to be a roof here, but we've taken that down now. So you can kind of still see what used to be like where animals used to be here for when it was still an old tie barn. When the animals that's kind of how they used to milk them. They'd all have the animals get lined up and then they'd milk them. So obviously that has since been torn out. And we used to have a bunch of stalls in here, and about 2 years ago, a couple summers ago, we took all those out so we could put bales like this in here. So that's kind of basically all we really use this down here for, is just more bale storage. And then sometimes we had like pigs down there. If you remember earlier, the pigs were down that area, but otherwise, yeah, that's really all this gets used for nowadays. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty much everything that there is to see that still kind of stands. It's still kind of enough where it's kind of cool to look at and we still get a use out of it. So that's pretty nice that we could still at least use this stuff. Thanks for making it to the end of the video if you're seeing this. Thanks for watching. I mean, it's kind of cool for me to do because I wanted to like learn a little bit more about the farm. And it's kind of cool just to see how things used to be and how we got to where we are now. So it's just kind of cool to bring you guys along and show you kind of what the farm history is. So if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll probably be doing another one of these eventually. Might be a week or two because this took a little while to get put together. But yeah, thanks for showing your support, and we'll see you guys in the next video.